In this series on screen addiction in kids, let's talk about something very important, that is the long-term effects of screen addiction in kids. Welcome back to Beyond Words with Indu. When there are long-term effects, we have to understand that there are short-term effects as well. If you want to know more on the short-term effects of screen addiction in kids, you can check the link in the description below. Before we learn about the long-term effect of screen addiction in kids, we have to understand what is the meaning of long-term effect. Long-term effect is something which has developed over weeks, months, or even years together. And here we have to understand that long-term effect is most of the time it is permanent effect and it is not reversible. Now let's see the long-term effects one by one. The first long-term effect is delay in language, communication and social skills. So let's understand how the language development happens. When a baby is born, it is always a two-way communication. For example, when the baby smiles, the caretaker smiles back. Or when the baby tries to say something or make some noise, the caretaker or the parents always respond back. But here, when the screen is replaced with that, the screen is always a one-way communication. So even if the child smiles at it or if the child says something, the screen will not react back. So the child doesn't learn how to communicate with somebody when the screen is replaced. And also the child lacks the language skills, such as we call it as the functional communication, where you say give, take, I'm hungry, thirsty, because the screens don't teach all that. Here we see a lot of parents coming to our Enliven Therapy Center saying that my child is able to say the rhymes, my child is able to say alphabets, numbers, but the problem is that the child doesn't know how to say mom, dad, or mama, I'm hungry, or I want to go to toilet. So these are the important communication words the child is not able to say. So when we communicate with the child, we understand that the child has excellent vocabulary. But here the social skills are lacking in the child because the child has learnt all these things, all the vocabulary only from the screen. So the child doesn't know how it happens in the real life. So when I smile at the child doesn't know to smile back. Or when I react to something, the child doesn't react back. So we call it as virtual autism. We see symptoms of autism in kids who have the screen exposure for a longer duration. The second long-term effect is emotional dysregulation. Here, when the screen is replaced whenever the child is crying, or whenever the child wants to eat, or when you're going for a long car drive, or the child cannot take words such as no, you're replacing with the screen. So the child doesn't know how to overcome or how to cope up with the emotions because there is always a distraction there, which will lead to behavioral challenges in the kids or aggressive nature in the kids in long run. If you have missed watching the previous video where I have spoken about how screens are used as emotional pacifiers, I recommend you to go back and watch the video. The third long-term effect is addiction like dependency. So here we have to understand about the dopamine feel-good hormone. The same hormone is secreted when somebody is addicted with the alcohol or smoking. So they feel good whenever they indulge in such things. And the same hormone is again secreted when somebody is watching phone. So what happens over time, there is an addiction to it. So the child cannot do any of the activities without the screen. The fourth long-term effect is academic struggles and cognitive impairment. So the cognitive skills are critical thinking, memory, creativity, etc. Imagine a child is playing with the mud or the sand. So the child builds a castle out of it or makes something out of it and tries to be as creative as possible. So the play always teaches creativity. But when the screen is replaced, the child only watches everything through the screen. It could be even a story. In those days, when we used to listen to the stories from our elders, we used to imagine a lot of things, right? But all those things are lacking in today's kids because everything is just shown to them, where there is no imagination at all. So, which will later affect their cognitive skills in a longer run, where they will not be creative enough in any of the skills. The fifth long-term effect is physical health risk. As a child is sitting for a long time watching the screen, the child develops obesity, diabetes, and postural health risk. Now, let's quickly recap all the 5 effects I just spoke. The first one is delay in language, communication, and social skills. The second is emotional dysregulation. The third is addiction like dependency. The fourth is cognitive impairment and academic struggles. And the fifth one is physical health risk. If you see any of these symptoms in your kid, and this is the right time to consult the healthcare provider and start with the right intervention. Let's together develop an emotionally strong, gadget-free kids. Stay tuned.